Hello and welcome to our Teaching for 21st Century webinar brought to you by the David Horowitz Freedom Center and the Glazov Gang. I am your host, Annie Cyrus. Please use the Q&A box on your screen if you have any questions, and I promise we will get to them as soon as our very special guest presentation is over. With that being said, it is my honor and privilege to introduce our guest this evening. Not that he needs an introduction, but he is the one and only Dr. Bill Warner. You all know him. He is my hero, many other Americans' hero, and a lot of ex-Muslims' hero. He is also the founder of the Center for the Study of Political Islam. He is an internationally known speaker, blogger, and author. Welcome to the program, Dr. Warner.
Well, I'm delighted to be here, Annie, because I think we're going to be discussing something tonight which is very important for two reasons: ethics and morals, and the other is winning an ideological war. So this is going to be what I hope is an exciting talk tonight, or at least I'm excited.
Me too. I was counting moments. Literally, I was here 15 minutes ago counting moments. So please take it away.
Well, this all started when I was talking with somebody. I have students in Europe, and I was talking with her about the ability to get in front of the right people to deliver the message of what is the true nature of Islam. And she was not having good success, but she pointed out the truth of how this war is going on, this ideological war. That is, I write books, I give talks, but what we will call grassroots people are the ones who are my audience. The governor of the state of Tennessee is not watching this tonight, nor is anybody that has real power watching this tonight. We've all been the Muslim Brotherhood has got there before all of us. So most people think that, well, you can't understand Islam, you just have to listen to what Muslims say. And so the Muslim Brotherhood furnishes the people who will do the talking for you. So I said, let me ask you a question. This was just a sudden impulse. I said, have you ever heard of a former Muslim, an ex-Muslim, an apostate, ever being able to present the side of Islam to anyone in the government or any agency or organization? She says, no, I haven't. I said, this is in a Central European country. I said, there's no law against it, is there? She says, no. I've never heard of anyone ever letting apostates, former Muslims, ever speak to anybody about Islam that was in an official capacity. And I said, that's what I thought, because I don't know of anything happening like that in the United States. But I suddenly saw this was a great idea for two reasons. I've met many apostates and I admire them. They love freedom and they're intelligent and they're courageous. The average ex-Muslim knows more about Islam than the average Muslim does because they have gone through and studied it before they left. So anyway, I thought, what are we going to do here? And I thought, there's a way we can crack the code here. Now, there are more former Muslims than you might suspect, and they are usually silent. I've seen one estimate that as many as 25% of all Muslims in America are actually apostates, but they don't actually do anything about it. That is, they just don't believe. Now, what happens is if you leave Islam, there are several bad things that can happen. One is you can be killed. Abu Bakr, the successor to Muhammad as caliph, his first war was the Ridda Wars, the apostasy wars. And then how important is apostasy? Well, there was an imam, one of the leading imams from Al-Azhar University, who said if it were not for the rules of apostasy, that is, you can't leave, Islam would have disappeared. So I thought that was a terrible confession to make, but at the same time, this is how important it is. So, former Muslims are never given the respect they need. For instance, since they know so much about Islam and they know the native languages, whether it's Arabic or, I'm forgetting right now what the language is, in Farsi. So they're not allowed, the FBI needs people that know these languages, but former Muslims are never allowed to do this. The only people who do our translation work of Arabic inside of our FBI are Muslim Brotherhood fundamentally. So that's how important it is. Now, this is true in all organizations. NSA, certainly it's true in the state of Tennessee. Now, many organizations have a token Muslim on their board. I know of organizations who are think tanks that do this in DC. And why do they do this? Well, if you're going to speak on the subject of Islam and you don't have a Muslim on board, then you're called Islamophobic and your entire organization is called Islamophobic. So therefore, most of the time, we just don't have anybody in their seat. Let me say this again, that was not clear. Organizations have Muslims on board so that they will not be accused of Islamophobia. Well, what I'm saying is they should also have, if they have Muslims on board to talk about Islam, they should also have former Muslims. This is true at all levels of government. Now, there's civil rights issues to be dealt with here. Former Muslims do not have true freedom of religion because they live in fear. And by the way, let me say something. The average Muslim, if they leave Islam, do not necessarily get killed. They could be, but they're not necessarily. Usually what happens is this. The family says, you're dead to us. We could kill you, but we won't. Don't ever call us again. Don't contact us again. In other words, you're shunned and driven out of the clan. So Muslims are an invisible organization. They're an invisible victim. That's the word I want. And so as an invisible victim, we don't ever notice what's going on with them. But they don't have true religion and freedom, true freedom of religion. They don't have also freedom of speech. I'm going to call it discrimination in employment. So these are the problems. Now here's how it should work. Here in Nashville, Tennessee, this is a state capital. We have a new governor. He's a Republican governor. And he wanted to have education for the Tennessee Highway Patrol and the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Now, he knows that I exist, but he would never use me because I'm on the SPLC forbidden list of being official bigots. So what does he do? Well, the American Muslim Advisory Council, AMAC, furnished their speakers to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and the Highway Patrol. Now then, I happen to know what they said, and surprise, surprise, what they said was, Islam is the religion of peace. Yes, that's what they said. And that the only real problem is there were basically derelict Muslims who were extremists, and therefore the real Islam is the religion of peace. And these other peoples are just bad apples in a barrel of apples. So here's what should happen. We do not want to inhibit Muslims being able to talk to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, but we do want this. We want a former Muslim to also speak. This way you get two sides of the coin both explained to you. Not for the former Muslim to debate, but just to say this is the nature of Islam. Because here's what's going to happen. If you're a member of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, you're told by the Muslim Brotherhood that Islam is a religion of peace, and let's say you're a religious person. When you go to your ministry, it's going to say, oh yes, Islam is a religion of peace. We've only heard from one side. And the former Muslim knows Islam and also knows the world of the kafir. They're the real experts. If there's any one group of people that we should be asking about the nature of Islam, it's not me, but it's former Muslims, because they know the real deal. I know the theoretical deal, but I don't know what goes on in daily life. So that's what should happen. Every time that a Muslim gives states on policy or anything like that, we should also have a former Muslim speak to the issue as well. Now then, what I would like to do is to create the idea of we need a civil rights group that is based on Martin Luther King's nonviolent protest. We need to create an organization, because this idea, if we're to start having it such that if, for instance, the congressman from my area has Muslims on his staff, what we would do is we would go to him as a lobbyist and say, we want you to also have former Muslims on your staff so that you'll get the full picture of Islam. That's a rather radical idea. But notice what it does is it puts our message, which is the true nature of Islam, at the highest levels, not grassroots level anymore, because everywhere the Muslim Brotherhood goes, they start at the top. They start with the mayor, they start with the governor. So we need, if they've already forged the path in. So what we need to be able to do is to have former Muslims just sit down beside them and talk about what they know about Islam. So that's the general idea. It's quite simple. It's that we should start using former Muslims and give them their civil rights. And we need to describe this in terms of civil rights so that people will be sensitive to it. One of the great things about this idea is I find that most people don't want to hear what I have to say about Islam, particularly if they're left of center. But if we're talking about civil rights and human rights, it shifts the whole ground of the argument. What I want to be able to do is to be able to have a permanent group of former Muslims. The Kafirs work, other Kafirs work with them as well. And that we lobby people from, let's say, the state textbook committee. The textbook committee already has a Muslim on board to make sure that the history of Islam is not told in an offensive way. We need to also have, for the Tennessee State Textbook Commission, a former Muslim. We should have within the FBI, for instance, that there are former Muslims who are translators and policy, what I'm going to call people who explain policy. Because people always defer to Muslims when it comes to knowing about Islam since they don't read the books. So here we would have former Muslims who are able to speak to congressmen, senators, and the FBI should be anyone who uses tax dollars. For instance, think tanks. They have grants. They should also have, if they're going to have one Muslim on board, then they need to have a former Muslim as well. This gives us a powerful political voice at the highest levels. So that's the reason the idea, I think, is such a good one. So we need to start a civil rights movement based on Martin Luther King's work. This would appeal to the young. For instance, I know that most young people have been put through a process of becoming politically correct, and they're quite woke. And what we need to do here is to be able to, this would appeal even to young people. It would appeal to the left. It would appeal to the right. It would appeal to just about anybody, because it's kind of hard to stand up and say, no, I don't think that former Muslims should have true freedom of speech. Nor, if we're spending tax dollars, that former Muslims are never allowed to speak in terms of expertise when the tax dollars are being spent. Again, coming back to the idea of a think tank. So we need to demand that all agencies and lobby all agencies to make sure that they are also hiring former Muslims. This is schools, anybody who gets tax dollars. They need to hire Muslims. If they're going to hire Muslims in a policy advisory capacity, then they must also hire ex-Muslims as well. So ex-Muslims should also be equal in media. They should be interviewed, business, and all Kafirs can work with ex-Muslims. For instance, I would love to be part of a lobbying team in which there's a former Muslim with me, but I can go in and be a front man, which would add strength, because let's face it, there are many Muslims who don't want to be known publicly about this. So therefore, people who are not Muslims but Kafirs, such as myself, could work with them or work alone, but have the idea that you need to be hiring former Muslims. You're not hiring any now, so you are discriminating in the job workplace. These are powerful arguments. It would be good, for instance, in this dream of the movement for civil rights for former Muslims, would be to have a good civil rights attorney, for instance. So former Muslims are discriminated against. They know more about Islam and the Kafir worlds, and they're an invisible persecuted minority group. There's nothing to resist in this in terms of morals, but it's more than just a good idea to give people freedom of speech and freedom of ideas and freedom of religion. It also would be, these former Muslims could be some of the most powerful voices that we would ever have. So that's my idea. It's simple. I wanted to make this presentation short because I think that I would like to answer questions about this. But this is a strategic idea and a morals idea. So Annie, it's brief, but that's what I have to say about it.
Well, as an ex-Muslim myself, I would agree with every word you said. That is the happiness that finally somebody at the beginning of your presentation. Number one, you said a percentage of Muslims in America who are actually non-Muslims, they're just pretending to be Muslim. As of 2 months ago, the latest number that we have from all connections of human rights activists in Iran, my motherland has about 82 million population. 35% of Iranians are now have now converted to Christianity.
Really?
Behind closed doors. 12% of my motherland population are completely atheists as of now. And 11.2% of Muslims in Iran have publicly come out and denounced Islam.
11% in Iran did this?
They came out, they started a group of ex-Muslims within Iran. The idea came from the ex-Muslim community outside in Canada and America. They are publicly on social media, while in Iran, they have come out saying they are ex-Muslims. So
Well,
out of 81 million population, they include within their 1.2 billion Muslims. Those numbers are fake numbers in that 1.2 billion.
Well, you've also said something here, which is a new idea to me. I very much want to see this organization started, but it would also mean I'm seeing that we could tie in with other organizations.
Well, yes, but the second thing I wanted to say was what you mentioned was most ex-Muslims don't end up being dead. No, majority actually get away, either by hiding or protection the way I do, or as you said, the family's just like, go away, don't come back. Now, if you're inside a country that is run by Sharia, your chances are a little less to survive if you publicly do so. But point is, the idea you have, if part of it could also provide protection for ex-Muslims to come out publicly. Because as of today, even in America, you don't get any proper protection for being an ex-Muslim and speaking publicly. Every other organization lacks that as well. I can tell you, I know at least hundreds of ex-Muslim Iranians in America who talk to me on the phone and on chat rooms, but they always reject coming on my program because they don't want their face to be shown, because they don't want to die, they don't want their children to be endangered, nor do they want to lose the rights they have today, going back to your idea. Because right now, as long as nobody knows they're ex-Muslims, they have their jobs, they have their friends, they have their social life, everything is normal. But if there was an actual proper protection offered to them, I promise you, millions would come out.
I love the idea because I've met a lot of former Muslims and they strike me as freedom loving, intelligent, and just wonderful people. They're courageous. So therefore I would love this. I think this idea is I'm hoping. Now, Annie, let me tell you, I'm an optimist. My wife criticizes me saying, you always think it's going to be so easy. And I do, but it isn't easy always in the end, but at least I get started off. And so I think this is an idea whose time has come, because I think if we could give us an organization that would be lobbying, for instance, the mayor of the city, because he has people who advise him on Islam and they're all Muslims. So we could exert strong moral and civil rights pressure on the mayor of the city, such that the next time he has a question that deals with Islam, if he's going to speak on it in public, he's paid by tax dollars, then they need to be able to bring in a former Muslim as well.
Okay, I have so many questions to ask you myself, but I want to be fair and ask the questions from our audience too. So let me read you a question from our audience, which is a very fair question. He said, it seems to be a problem that the label ex-Muslim gets turned into hater because Muslims can smear them as being anti-Muslim. Can we find a better label?
I think we're going to have a lot of problems when we do this. And this is just one of them. And so I say, look, my method of learning is to run down to the deep end of the swimming pool, jump in and figure out, find some way out. So I'm saying we get in the middle of this. We're all going to have a lot of problems. And if we can come up with a better name for political purposes, I'm all for it. So the fact that it's difficult does not stop me from wanting to do it. As a matter of fact, that's more of a challenge.
I agree. And to be honest, I personally, as an ex-Muslim, I don't think there is a need for a different label. I always look at it as, why don't we retrain the opposition rather than change our name? We are ex-Muslims, and it's important. Somebody asked me, why do you keep saying I'm an ex-Muslim? Well, I'm an ex-Christian. Who cares? I said the difference is, you being an ex-Christian doesn't earn you death. Me being an ex-Muslim does, and I bear it very proudly. Not because I'm happy they want to kill me, no, because I'm happy that regardless of the threat, I have set myself free. That ex-Muslim label, and that's why they smear us, because they are afraid of us. One of the best ways to, fight your enemy is to smear them, discredit them. But I would disagree with the change, and I agree with you. Yes, I mean, I've been in this pool for a while. Now, I haven't had much success, but it's challenging, it's hard, but I don't think we should change the label for any reason. Ex-Muslims are ex-Muslims, and that ex plays a huge role. I mean, I think you would agree that ex-Muslims are the highest target by Islamic society, even worse than Christians and Jews.
I would agree with you there. But I also think that if we could get a few people actively involved in this, that others would come out. Once we can give them a living example, I think there will be other people who will join us. And by the way, if we're going to have a real organization that's going to defeat the lack of civil rights, it's going to have to last a long time anyway, and it's going to have to be a real organization. So we're going to need hands and mouths that we could use to do other work. So just because you don't want to appear in public doesn't mean that the Ex-Muslim Association or Civil Rights for Ex-Muslims doesn't need other kinds of work other than people appearing right in the public eye. So we could introduce people to work. And like I say, we also want not ex-Muslims, but just Kafirs in this organization as well, because it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do to help people, and it's the right thing to do to defend our civilization. Now, let me be very clear here. I'm grinding my own axe. I see the former Muslims as being one of the best weapons we have. So that's the axe that I'm grinding. I also want other people to feel free and happier, but I'm doing this for an ulterior motive. I want to defeat political Islam, and I think the former Muslims could play an extremely important part about that. For instance, maybe all what they do is to write articles. They don't, and they're not in public, but they write articles. And I've been struck by the fact that we have more and more former Muslims who appear on television. The apostate prophet is incredible. And there are other organizations which are apostates, and yet they speak freely on video. And I think people like Apostate Prophet and others could help popularize this idea. Robert Spencer, for instance, I'm going to encourage all the anti-jihadists to popularize this idea and to talk about it, because I think we can bring it about. It's just too good not to happen.
I think my face is answering. Yes, I'm excited. I'm happy. Tell me where to sign up.
Well, we don't have a place to sign up yet. We need to create that place.
Yes, I'm ready to sign up, and I agree. I guess my point is, Dr. Warner, many of us, ex-Muslim, we have already lost a lot. I came out publicly in 2011. It's been, wow, 10 years now. You see all these gray hairs? It happened in the last 10 years. And in the last 10 years, I have lost my previous career, which was guaranteeing a comfortable life for me. I have lost friends. I have lost coworkers. I have lost clients. I'm technically in hiding. So a lot of us already are going through the challenges and complications as it is. So we might as well, as you said, we all might as well dive in. I mean, we got nothing to lose. We're at a point where we got nothing to lose and a lot to gain, not just for us, but for the next generation. Now, there are still a lot of little tiny anti-Cyruses left behind who are facing what I faced, and they could be set free if we are successful in this movement, right?
I think we can make this successful. Again, I'm an optimist because pessimism wouldn't even let me start. But this idea feels right, and I'll use a peculiar phrase, it thinks right as well. That is, it makes a lot of sense. Now, of course, I can talk this way. Now, although I'm not a former Muslim, I receive my fair ration of abuse as well. Let me assure you of that. But it's verbal abuse. So far, people used to ask me if I've ever been threatened with life. That is, anybody said they're going to kill me because of my work, and they do not. Mostly what they've done is they're trying to take me off my platform so that I don't have a voice. Why do they take me off? Why do they want to take my platform away? Because they cannot debate me. All they do is they call me names. So those who will work with the former Muslims will also receive some abuse as well. But this is the right thing to do. In my mind, I can see myself sitting with a former Muslim in the mayor's office, talking to him about the need to bring on former Muslims into the mayor's office. I want to go down and talk to my congressman. I don't vote for him, but I'm going to talk to him while he's in his chair. And that is to talk to him about the fact that you spend federal tax dollars to hire Muslims to work with you. I demand, on the basis of morality and just what is good and right for the world, for you to do the same with former Muslims. And you notice I'm not saying that that Muslims should be fired. What I'm saying is that we just want to get all sides of the story. And I think that this is the right thing to do. We certainly are seeing what's happening now under the Biden campaign, where Muslims are being put in positions of authority. So we're losing ground fast, and that's the reason we need to move with some speed on this issue.
Agreed. Here's the next question. One huge problem is that any ex-Muslim movement needs leaders, but those leaders will instantly become targets to be murdered. How can we get around that?
Well, again, I told you this is going to be difficult. But one of the things that I could do is I could imagine myself speaking for former Muslims. I'm more than willing to do that. One of the things I've done, former Muslims sometimes convert to Christianity. When I go into any church, which I don't do so much anymore, but used to when I did, I asked the congregation two things. How many Muslims have you converted? None. And what have you done for the persecuted Christians overseas? You're commanded to preach the gospel to all the world, and you're also, it's just the right thing to do. So none of the churches ever ask. So here's an example of a place where we could bring in former Muslims to talk to Christian ministers. There would be no fear involved in this. So we need to find some half-step, baby steps for people to do. And I don't have all the answers, but I would like to take this moment to issue a call to others to contact me or you, and to say that you'd be willing to think about helping the organization. Now, let me be very clear about something. I'm good as a leader, but I'm a dreadful administrator, and I'm no networker at all. So I have my strengths, but if we're going to have, I can't organize a 3-car funeral. I'm just no good at management. We need to accept our weaknesses, and that's my weakness. So we need some people, for instance, who would be good administrators, who'd be willing to work on this project, and they don't have to be known publicly. But for instance, we need ways of communicating with each other. We need to have security in our communication. We need to work this out. So all the ideas that we have, if we're going to do it, and we get enough people so that we can share common ideas, because I don't claim to have all the answers, I just have the question, that I think we could get some work done. This is one of those, I run my life according to a philosophy. On my deathbed, I don't want to look back and say, I wish I had done this. That's how I've lived my life. And I cannot, once I've had this idea, just let it go by and say, well, it was a good idea. I've got to try to make this work. Because I want to be able to say on my deathbed, I did it. I did whatever I thought I should do, and I didn't hold back. So I have a personal issue here. But I think that we can do this. We're living in unique times. This is the first time that apostates as any number have ever been known publicly. This is the first time in history in which the doctrine of Islam has been made easy to understand. So we're at a unique point in history, and we need to take advantage of it.
And that is one of many reasons that I love you very much, and I have the utmost respect for you.
Well, I have a lot of respect for you, as you know. I have a lot of respect for any former Muslim because they have a lot invested in life, let's put it that way, and a lot of courage to be able to do that.
I appreciate that. Here's the next question for you. Dr. Warner, I have heard you use the label kafir quite often, and it seems that you prefer to own that term as a proud identity. Can you clarify your thoughts on that word?
Well, first off, let me assure you that kafir is the Arabic word that's used in the Quran by Allah. Let's start with that. So I sat down and counted up the number of the root word of kafir is KFR. And so I went through and counted in the Quran how many times that the word kafir was used to mean believer. Because I've had Muslims say, oh, no. Kafir just means you're not grateful. Well, I counted them up. There were 345 uses of the term kafir in which it meant unbeliever. There were 34, I think, in which it was used in terms of gratitude. So when Muslims tell me that kafir does not mean unbeliever, but instead means ingratitude, I say I've counted the words that Allah spoke, accepting that hypothesis, and he calls me a kafir. If the Quran calls me a kafir, why can't you call me a kafir? But now I'm also know enough to know that one reason they don't want us to use the word kafir is it is the filthiest word in any language, because it's an insulting term that is used not by just a Muslim, and it's usually during filthy kafir Hodges, I believe it is. And so therefore we need to be able to use the word, it's the right word. And there's another reason I use the word kafir. It upsets Muslims. They don't want me to use it. That's good enough.
Well,
but it's precisely accurate.
Actually, the reason it's insulting is kafir comes from the root word in Arabic, kufr. Kufr means unholy, anti-Allah. So when you're a kafir, you are committing unholy acts. So that makes you filthy. Just a little note there of where the root comes. And yes, they will argue that kafir means those who don't believe in God. But no, technically, kafir is the person who will not believe in Allah, does not accept Muhammad as the prophet or messenger of Allah, and will do things that were haram or unauthorized within the Quran. That makes anyone that is not a Muslim a kafir. Now, next question again about terms. It's asking if the label apostate does apply to non-Muslims.
Well, apostates, as I understand the term, is you're leaving what you were in. So since I've never been in Islam, I couldn't be an apostate for Islam. I'm just a kafir, an unbeliever. I do not think that there is a God, Allah, and I do not think that Muhammad was the messenger. I think he was confused. So I use the word kafir for former Muslims as well.
So technically, no, it doesn't apply to non-Muslims. But when you read the Quran, there are verses, two of them very specific, that it does say that your ancestors were apostates because Jesus was the prophet of Islam.
Right.
So Christians who practice Christianity from time of Muhammad on, they were Muslims and they turned their back and became Christians. Very not complicated, just confusing, because Allah loves to confuse people. But let me get to the next question. They're piling up. I'm sorry, our lovely audience. I'm a little too excited, so I might just keep talking. Why so few ex-Muslims denounce the Quran itself, who seems to be the base of the Islam's sect?
Well, I can't answer that question. I don't know why former Muslims do what they do, but I think that part of why they, just looking at it from the outside, to deny the Quran would just irritate Muslims more. And so it's enough just to step away from the whole business, but not doing what you might call it, that would be an insulting term. I'm guessing on this.
Well, honestly, I don't know. I personally don't know any ex-Muslim who would not denounce Quran. We all do. We all say Quran is made up by Muhammad. He just ran in their head from everybody, came out and made up verses that would suit him under the circumstances. That's where the whole contradiction of Quran starts from. So I'm not aware of any ex-Muslim who wouldn't denounce Quran, so I can't unfortunately answer that question either. Okay, next question. Do you think our present government in Washington, D.C. would push back on your wonderful idea of giving ex-Muslims a voice in government?
Of course they would push back. I expect that from the day, from the first day. But the fact that they push back, look, I was involved in the civil rights movement in the 60s. There was pushback against what we were doing. It wasn't like we just said, that all people are equal and should be treated that way under the law. That isn't the way it worked. The people in power want the situation that they have now in their hands. But we went anyway. They did not invite us to protest. We protested on our own. They didn't invite us to do that. As a matter of fact, none of the things that we did, which now seem sort of romantic. Oh, you were involved in civil rights in the 60s with Martin Luther King? Wow. Well, in the time, it's like you bought Amazon stock at $2. Well, you look like a genius now. But when you were doing it, you weren't a genius. You were a man taking a risk. And in the same way, what we were doing in the civil rights was opposed. It isn't just everybody says, oh, how could we have been so stupid and wrong? Of course, we'll change everything now. We had to exert effort, public opinion effort. We had to do it in a lot of different ways. And we'll have to do the same here. Look, we're breaking new ground. It's going to be difficult, but we can't not do it.
I would agree. Okay. Am I correct to think this? It might be completely crazy, but actually, I think this is the best time to do this because the more pushback you get on an idea that is about civil rights, the louder your voice gets, isn't it?
My thing is, you're correct. But my thing is, we can't wait. Look, the power of Islam is growing at a fantastic rate. And under the Biden presidency, it's growing even faster than I would imagined. So we have to do it now because we don't have enough time anyway. So no matter what the reason that we shouldn't do it, we do it anyway. This is war, ideological war. I'm not talking a shooting war or anything like that. But we need to do it. And former Muslims need to work with the people of America today. And this is the way they can do it. I also think we need to understand that there will be people who will jump on this. It's a virtuous thing to do. And so therefore, people who might otherwise never oppose Islam at all. And by the way, did I mention that the fact that former Muslims will be educating people as to what the true nature of Islam is. So we got to do it, no matter what the problem. I don't care what problem you bring up. We got to do it.
Agreed. We have to do it. Here's a question. Is it worth it for ex-Muslims to try to become an identity group voting bloc?
Why not?
How does that work?
Well, first off, we need a group. You never want to go see a politician by yourself. You always want to at least bring one or two other people with you. Politicians want to respond to groups, not individuals. So therefore, we first need to create a group. And once we create a group, we will have more political power, we'll have more social power, and we'll just have more power in general. Right now, it's just Annie and Bill talking. But once we can get 1,000 people in a group, and I think we could do that. Remember, we also have channels of communication here. The apostate prophet could popularize this idea, or any of the other people. Robert Spencer. I think we're going to find enough people who are brave enough and who want to work with apostates. And by the way, I think there'll be some morale building for apostates to find out that there are people such as myself who are willing to stand up and fight for them. So I think that that'll be a very positive thing to do. It will increase morale.
Yes. Again, I can promise you what I'm feeling right now, every single ex-Muslim out there will feel this way, which is finally somebody is understanding their life. Well, okay, I use it this way. When I was a woman under Islam, I was a second-class citizen. I became an ex-Muslim, and under force of Islam in a free country, I'm still a second-class citizen. So what did I fight for? Or why am I trying to get myself beheaded when I'm going to still be a second-class citizen, especially under administration like current administration? If it comes between me and someone from CARE, they will side with them. They will throw me under the bus in a split second. They're not going to care because they don't want to be Islamophobes, right?
Right.
Okay. A lot of comments are complimenting your idea, and they're saying it's a great idea. You mentioned it quickly for people to get either in touch with me or you, but do you mind quickly breaking down the first steps that our audience or whoever watches this video can actually tomorrow morning get going on? What would be that or those steps be?
Well, we're in the difficulty here. We're going to have to bootstrap this operation. That is, we don't have anything now at all. And really all we have is the idea and Bill and Annie saying they're willing to take names. We're going to have to start and find somebody who's a good organizer and a good administrator. Because if we're going to go the distance, we need to have orderly communication. There's a whole lot of problems to do here. But if we could start with a group who volunteers to try to help, we will find somehow or another people who can start the idea of creating an administrative body so that they would have places to share information and just in general communicate. So I don't think we can get this started tomorrow morning, but we can start it and get help. I would say the first thing we need to do is to get other people. I'll just bring Spencer up again, David Wood, all the other apostate prophet. We need to first agree a group of people, and then out of this group of people find out who can do some things like maintaining a mailing list. It's a hassle. I don't like to do it, but we need somebody who can do it. So, and you can also tell that I don't really know the answers to a lot of these things. I just know it is a problem. It irritates me to no end to know that there are people who cannot speak freely, who don't have freedom of religion, who are discriminated against in the employment place. So I have a morals issue here. And so how we're going to start this, I don't know. Hopefully a year from now, we'll look back and see how it was so obvious once we saw the answer, but I don't have the answer now. But I don't see how as a civilization we can survive without it. Once we have people who are Muslims who are in charge of security apparatus in this country, we're reaching a deadly point. So the problem is just too bad not to work on it and solve it.
Also, I think one part a lot of people can do is actually share this very video. Just get the idea out there, right? Start sharing it on your pages. Start talking about it. Open the conversation. Civil rights for ex-Muslims. Just start discussing it. That would get more and more people to hear about it. They will open up. We never know, as Dr. Warner said, there might be people out there who want to join and they might have ideas and answers. So let me ask you this question. Peggy's asking, or she said, I have friends from Iran who seem to fear being exposed. They won't even go to public meetings. Has fear been instilled on them as a child so they can carry that constantly?
Well, if there are people who don't want to show their face, then we need to have ways to bring them into the group in which their face is never shown. This may be, for instance, if some of the conferences are done by phone or Zoom with the camera off, whatever. These are all little details we'll have to work out. And by the way, I have no disrespect for a former Muslim who says, I just can't do it. We just need to find a few people to get this started. If we can find 10% of the former Muslims and we'll let them start working on this, we'll create a group that has momentum and it will become more normal to be a former Muslim publicly. But like I say, if we're going to create an organization which is going to last for years and get work done, there's room for people who will never be seen. They're the people who do keep all the records straight, the membership straight. And we need to have some way of maintaining a membership list so that people don't have to worry about the fact that they're going to be identified. I already have some ideas on that.
Agreed. And always, my go-to is radio. You can always have ex-Muslims to come on air, tell their story, tell their complications and all that on a radio, and they're safe.
Yes. So maybe we use the radio a lot, or whatever. All these ideas can be done. I know I sound like a broken record. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to do it.
Well, honestly, I'm just very happy and grateful that you are putting the idea out there. That has never been done. And again, as an ex-Muslim, I feel like okay, this is crazy, but I feel like I just want to go into my living room and dance with them, because finally people are going to understand that our life isn't that easy, and we don't come out as ex-Muslims for fame and money. No, we don't.
It's a human call of the heart.
Thank you. Exactly. It's that. Well, one part is we need to, as you said, and I'm not trying to take credit, but I'm just emphasizing on what you said. I know a lot more about Islam than anyone who never was a Muslim girl. I'm the one who was given a license in my hand at age 9 saying, congratulations, you're a woman now. I felt that paper, and with that, I felt the entire inside of me crashing into pieces. So number one, always for me, has been educate my fellow Americans so they know what's coming. I don't want them to be blindsided. I don't want them to be clueless and be fooled into the lies of places who are pretending that Islam is a religion of peace. But the second part of it, yes, it's that I want to tell my story because my voice deserves to be heard. More than that, those who don't have a voice deserve to be heard. So the whole combination comes to where, yes, when you have this brilliant idea, people like me, there's a party. How are we going to do it? I don't know either, but the point is we're going to do it. And for that, I think I said too much time, but thank you, Dr. Warner. Thank you for even thinking about the idea. How we will figure it out, we'll get it done, but thanks for even thinking about it.
I love the idea. Civil rights for former Muslims.
Exactly. So tell our audience where they can go in meantime to check out your other reports and your other videos and your other work, and also maybe stay updated as you update your website.
Well, I have a website, politicalislam.com. I also have I'm still on, I don't know why, on YouTube. Political Islam is my channel there. You can get in touch with me via my website, politicalislam.com. So at first, we're just accumulating a list of names. What I would imagine is once we accumulate a list of names, is we have a Zoom conference, and if we want to, we can be with video cameras off for those who want it, so that we can talk about what to do. Because I don't want to be just a wise guy, but I think that the idea itself, civil rights for former Muslims, once you've said the idea, it's like, who's going to say I don't want civil rights for former Muslims? I would like to meet that person. Even those who have subjugated themselves to Islam by just believing everything they're said, it'd be kind of hard for them to say, I don't want civil rights for former Muslims. I mean, you can't do that. You might think that, but you won't be able to say it. There are other channels that we can get this started in, other groups that exist that could take up the idea and popularize it. Who those people would be, I don't know. But there's bound to be other people who want former Muslims to have full civil rights. We'll find them. They'll come to us.
Exactly. That's why I'm asking everyone to put it out there. Start sharing this video. It will be available on YouTube channel Glazov Gang in a few hours. Share it everywhere. Talk about it to spread the word. Well, ex-Muslims deserve civil rights as much as anyone else. With that being said, thank you so much, Dr. Warner, for your wisdom. You are the wise man. You are. Either you want to or not, but you are, at least to me. So thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your never-ending, brilliant ideas and work. And thank you for your time tonight, sharing all your ideas with us.
Thank you so much, Annie. It means a
Absolutely.
lot that you say that.
Oh, thank you. And to our audience who stayed with us until now, we appreciate you. Remember, these webinars are brought to you by David Horowitz Freedom Center and the Glazov Gang for free. So if you want to support these webinars, all you got to do is go to frontpagemag.com and consider making a 100% tax-deductible donation. With that being said, stay safe and goodbye.